My dad was dean of UST twice. If ever you're going to apply, especially for masters, especially for scholarship, don't treat it like a side job. It's a full-time preparation. You have no excuse to fail. Okay, everyday life. Okay, so I'm Cesar. My full name is Cesar Augusto Sagandan Concio III. Well, I come from a family of architects. I'm a third generation architect. My grandfather was initially a civil engineer and then took up architecture. My dad initially was a chemical engineer and then took up architecture afterwards. Sad to say, I'm just an architect. But my first course when I enrolled in college was actually pre-med. Um, and then I shifted to architecture after that. Short story is because growing up in growing up in the 1980s, ayan, age na reveal na. The cartoons that we were watching were more of the robots. So you've got, I'm not sure if you know this, but Dimos, Transformers, Voltus 5, Voltron, and the rest of the TV series on space, like Battlestar Galactica, Star Trek, Star Wars, all of those things. So I was really interested in science. So my earliest notion of what I wanted to be was an inventor, building robots and stuff. And then slowly when you grow up, you realize there's no such thing as an inventor. There's no occupation, no course as an inventor. So that inventor slowly transformed into being a scientist. High school, so sciences based. But still, and I'm sure you've experienced this, the closer you get towards fourth year or graduating from high school, you get pressured to finally choose a specific course. Also, there's no scientist, there's no inventor. And then the practical side comes in. So what is the most practical side of a scientist? Equals doctor. So my first choice were all BS biology in different colleges and exams. My third choice was architecture. So I didn't get into BS biology in UP, but I got waitlisted in BS molecular biology and biotechnology. Yeah, so these are dealing with RNA, DNA splicing, mutation, whatever. And so I got in, but I distinctly remember this as well. And I'm sure if you also experience this, the summer or the months leading up to the first day of college, you're starting to have this panic attack of, is this really it? What core, just like a tick of a checkbox, and then that will set off your whole career. So, and at this time, my hobbies at the time, let's interlude with other stuff than architecture. My hobbies were building sandcastles, building card castles, Legos and stuff. So that's where I realized there's no such thing as buildings in medicine. So maybe I'm really meant to be an architect. So that the summer before college, I said, okay, I'll shift or I'll transfer. I think I want to be an architect. So the first day of college, I go to UP. I went straight to the registrar's office, 8 a.m. before my first class. Yeah, that was for my first class. And I asked the registrar, can I shift to architecture? So she asked me, bakit? They said, gusto ko lang. Denied. So they didn't allow me to shift to architecture. So I had to take up in 1 year molecular bio and biotech. And I didn't realize that my first day of college, we were only 17. I think more or less 20. The whole BS MBB, 20, 17, 20 people. And it was my realization that, oh no, what did I get myself into? Okay, and the only reason why I chose molecular biotech is because it was the only other course, to my knowledge, in UP that had a bio. Realize that it's a hard course. And I had to stay in it for 1 year. And I failed Chem 16. I barely passed the math. But then after I realized I really want to shift to architecture anyway, I just took the common courses and then dropped the rest. Yeah, so that beginning in college was good and bad. Number one, since I dropped some and failed already, that removed the pressure. And I was a shifty, 6 years in Archi, which is great. There was no more pressure to get Latin honors. Wala na. So,
Yeah.
okay. At least first year pa lang, wala na. Second is I was able to finish almost all of my GE subjects, general electives. So medyo chill na. That made me enjoy college more, and that is one of the reasons why I enjoyed college more than high school. And this is not a common thing. I think some of my friends really enjoyed high school more. So my dad was dean of UST twice in the martial law era, 1970s, and in the year 2000. I'm not sure if my dad was kidding or not, but he said, no, mag-UP ka na lang. Kasi maraming galit sa akin ng professors. Kasi he was dean. And he was known to be a terror dean. So, kasi it's closer din to sa amin yung Diliman. So, maybe. So I went to UP for 6 years. Graduated. And then it took me a long time to take my master's. I wanted to take up master's in planning, not necessarily architecture, because I wanted to learn something new. I had the feeling that if I take up master's in architecture, it will just be another add-on, nothing necessarily new. So, and I had a choice. Okay, this is another story. I was kind of pushed to take up master's because when I was teaching in FU at the time, I didn't have master's yet, and it was becoming strict that if you want to teach, you have to take up master's. So I applied for planning in School of Urban and Regional Planning in UP. But then I got this. My biggest project so far was this housing complex in a power plant. A few months afterwards, that gave me enough financial stability to apply for masters abroad. So okay, let's get rid of UP. So I had the choice between the US or the UK. My dad was really, really, really pushing me to go to the US because their generation, US talaga was the gold standard. Yes, but the thing with the US, I blame the US for all of our urban problems here in Manila because we are so, US, everything US. And the main thing about US planning is it's so car-centric. Highways, they ruined all the mass transit, the railroads and everything. And you could see the trend if you talk about the history of planning. So I went to the UK. And one reason why I like the UK planning is if you look at the countries they colonized, specifically Hong Kong, Singapore, they are the gold standard in transport. So I wanted to go to the UK. I applied for the the usual suspects, Cambridge, Bartlett, which used to be the top school in architecture, and University of Sheffield as my safe bet because it was ranked high in research and was beside walking distance on National Park. Sad to say, I got rejected in Cambridge and Bartlett. And this is another lesson. Okay, lessons to you guys. If ever you're going to apply, especially for masters, especially for scholarship, don't treat it like a side job. It's a full-time preparation. As in, it's like preparing for the Olympics. So my mistake there was I took it as a side job. These are the documents. I just need to write something and then send it off. So so they required a portfolio. Okay, and that's why it's also very important to make sure your portfolios are saved curated and presented very well. I sent off my office portfolio, so my projects. I was competing with students with so many crazy ideas and concepts. So mistake number one. So of course, looking at what's this houses and townhouses compared to this Mars spaceship or whatever, or philosophical comparison between Dostoevsky and whatever in Renzo Piano. So yeah, and my essay was focusing again on my firm because that's what I was known for here. When they were looking at someone who could give back, to their country, their community, some capitalist architect. So prepare well, know exactly what they want and prepare for it. It's a good thing I got accepted pa nga sa Sheffield which looking back, I hope it's not sour graping, I totally enjoyed because like I said, I love nature. Just imagine waking up and just running in the mountains, in the hills and trees and stuff. It's a 2-hour train ride to London. Every time I had to go to London, I couldn't wait to get back to Sheffield. So that's my point. Another thing, that's why I highly recommend, if you can, to plan already for masters. Work first, but then take up masters because it will really expand your mind. So what kind of student? Because I'm not sure. Maybe because of my experience, I tended to become the leader in group work. Sometimes in the group work, you tend to be the leader, something like that. And most of the students were Chinese, so it was a really international course. So if you learn English, you're already up there. With the professors, because the main difference between education here in the Philippines and education in the UK is that it's not professor-centered talaga. It's like equal. Maybe because Oswell masters, but there's no such thing as this bowing to the professor. It's really a dialogue. Harder to get a higher grade, but it's easier to pass. Because as well, the school will shower any kind of assistance that you possibly will be needing. 24-hour library, you can eat in the library. There's a 24-hour coffee shop in the library. Laptop rental, computer rentals, free tutorial on anything. Everything is given to you. You have no excuse to fail. Which is tama naman diba? The point naman is for the student to learn. Yeah, I was also elected as the chorus representative. It's a lot of orgs, yes. And I was also officers in a lot of orgs. I was also a rep for Archie. I wasn't a grade conscious person, I'm not saying that you should be or you should not be, but it's more of looking at the bigger picture. And I think because of my experiences in different orgs at the time, it helped me holistically more to get ready for work or after school. Showing the sincerity in an org, your sincerity in developing that org for the org and showcasing your skill, that you are deserving of the position that is given to you. I'm a crammer. My record was 3 days no sleep. I mean, there's power naps, but then, you wake up because, but yeah. And my worst experience was we had a deadline and then I was working on the model and I fell asleep. And then I was dreaming that natapos na, we presented. Only to when I woke up, where am I? It was 4 hours before the deadline. And then the slow realization that it's just a dream. You're not yet done. You're from being done. Very traumatic. And I think that's one thing I have to give it to architecture. Architecture really prepares you indirectly for life. I have to say, because it's known worldwide that architecture is one of the hardest courses, both mental, physical, right? Technical, scientific, and creative. Treat everyone kindly. Just try to be understanding in where they're coming from. It was my first year. And I had the I was lucky enough to get a very good professor for my design one who made us do models, all models. And I really enjoyed it. That was one of my most creative works really in the freshman year. And I loved showing it, what you worked with your hands. I remember we had to design a doorway. That's it, just a doorway, nothing else. And I remember I played with the glue gun and wire. So I wanted to make like this temporal void to travel between dimensions. So I made it through using wires and wrapped glue gun all around it, like spider webs and silks, stalactites, whatever. And this is 1:10. So, and I remember we had a field trip to Ilocos at the time. So I brought all my glue gun, glue sticks, and wires, and was doing it even in the field trip, even in the bus, even in the hotel. And then I lit it up with lighting and acid. So yeah, I love doing models. Thesis was very memorable. I enjoyed Thesis. It was brutal but enjoyable. We were lucky enough to have group thesis. We made 3 models, huge models. Our thesis was a community above Makati City. We were one of the first to do walkthroughs. And what I like about Thesis at the time in UP was all the presentations were done in the auditorium. Okay, that big with guests. It was really a whole day of preparation, and it's like hosting a conference. In the UK, it's really it was fun, really. So culturally different. Imagine there's a bar inside the campus. It makes sense because British love drinking. So better to be drinking inside campus where it's safe, outside. And they even have you can call for home service to bring you home if you're really, really drunk. So they really take care of your students. So memorable. So my course is urban design and planning. I was one of the few architects. So one of my projects was I was doing a model of a site, physical model, which no one else in the class, in the whole course did. And so I was living in a flat with 6 other flatmates, and they pitched in, so it was a whole effort. And I was really touched because they didn't have, as in nagpuyat sila all the way up to 2 a.m. just to help me. And my professor, she was an architect, was also really impressed because, I was the only one who did a physical model. So, and she also believed in physical models. So I think that the most memorable experiences is showing you how you are as a person, as a Filipino, as an Asian, and bringing it in and showcasing it to the rest of the multinational cultural people around you. Danilo Silvestre, Professor Danilo Silvestre, who became Dean of UP College of Architecture as well. He totally got the creative process in terms of you as a freshman without knowing about space, focused on 3D, on doing things with your hand. And one thing I liked about it is I could experiment without following the rules of what architecture should be. Another project that he gave was your dream house. And I made a mud house out of clay. So, very organic stuff. Now it's more structured. Now, as a professor, we have to follow strictly the syllabi. There's online student evaluation. At that time, it's really academic freedom. Each studio, each class to itself. Good and bad. Good and bad. Of course, we have these structures to make sure, as safeguards, that the professor is complying with the minimum. But at the same time, there's this sort of, for me, limitation but I want to go in this direction. But yeah, good and bad. For me, one of the best examples of architecture studio is Bartlett, where it is run by, each class is run by a studio master, and the studio master dictates the direction, the activities. The student body auditions to a member of these studio masters. And then it's the studio master who chooses the students to be part of the studio. Know what you really want earlier. I know that there's this saying that each one has their own schedule. I'm a procrastinator, so I should have pushed myself earlier to take up masters, up to 40, 35, or whatever. Secondly, prepare. I can say this. I usually prepare for class a day before, even wing it. I just teach right there and then because I like the spontaneity of it. But it doesn't work if you have to prepare for, let's say, the scholarship. You can't wing it. There's some things that you really have to prepare for. So just understand the differences between the saying that each one has their own calendar or schedule and the reality that there are some things that you really want to do that have limits. But in the end of the day, yeah, no regrets, In masters, I had a more rigid and structured all-nighter ritual, which is work for 30 minutes an hour, and then walk around or exercise, quick exercise, coffee, caffeine, eat, and then back. So very, very structured. I can't imagine how I survived college without those chemicals. Coming into class, pretending I was a student, I was part of the class. I didn't know exactly how I revealed myself, but yeah. But I like playing pranks. Now, I play pranks in FB as well. I remember, of course, in USC, we have the Facebook groups, right? And then I mistakenly announced an esquisse and a deadline for the esquisse at another section. Proudest moment is when your student really does a good job and showcases his or her works to the rest of the community and appreciate na ng community my students' work. Those are proud moments, and that's one reason why I like teaching. To see the difference from before and after, to see the growth. I handled one we call they were the golden boys. They were kind of good because they were mostly second degree or mature students. They delivered great presentations, and the jurors were impressed with the models. And I use them to give talks in my class, even up to now, and to see how they're doing very well now in their own careers. So, Benil now is dabbling into parametric design, not officially. And this started because of, I'd like to believe, those group of people, of those students, because early on, in like when they were in second year, they wanted to find easier ways to finish their plates. And then so they learned Rhino, the software, Grasshopper, and all of the plugins to do parametric design, and it made their work easier and more impressive. And so they continued doing it. And then suddenly, word got around, these are very, very interesting designs. So it's spreading, not officially, but from that group of students. And I keep on telling my students this, sometimes you will even learn more outside of class. So the classroom is where you test your ideas, but it doesn't necessarily mean that in class is where you get your ideas. Okay. So yeah, that's one of my proud moments as a teacher. See, feeling ko mga thesis. That's why for me, be very, very serious in your thesis. But even now, there's no such thing as too early preparation for thesis. And if you do a good thesis or very passionate about your thesis, it is your cornerstone for developing future ideas as an architect, to hone your future architect identity. Well, now I currently teach in Benilde and in UST. I like the differences in teaching environments. I mean, it's not apples to apples. Each one has their own strength. UST, I'm teaching now AD6 and RMA. I'm excited about RMA. RMA is one of the weaker courses in the Philippines. Research, it's one. Yeah, so yeah, I'm teaching 2 subjects in UST. In Benilde, I'm teaching design. So they keep on giving me design subjects. So in Benilde is design 7, vertical structures. Yeah, I like thesis, but it can be draining. But anything draining man or hard is when it's done well. You get the satisfaction in this. Yeah. But it's also emotionally draining, of course, when your student fails or whatever. So it's both. But again, in anything you're passionate about, there are it takes away from you. Good and bad. So, but yeah, learning from my students, definitely. When I learn from my students, and that's what I like about teaching as well. You learn, especially now with your young generation. Because I graduated architecture kinda in the awkward moments wherein CAD wasn't taught. I don't know how to use SketchUp. Okay. I had to learn CAD outside. And now all of these softwares, I get overwhelmed. I'm sure even you will get overwhelmed with how many softwares now did you need to learn. Not just AutoCAD. Actually, AutoCAD is kind of being pasay na. Revit, ArchiCAD. And then you've got SketchUp. And then you've got, if you want to go to parametrics, you've got Rhino, Grasshopper, and everything else. So for me, it's kind of overwhelming, and I'm learning, not necessarily how to use it, but the usefulness of it. And I've collaborated with 1 or 2 students already with a actual project, to tap into their knowledge and skill set in parametric design. That's where I could say a significant impact in the student-professor relationship when you become colleagues or collaborators. More specifically, I like telling stories. I think it's linked also to architecture because you like the feeling of leaving a mark and seeing people enjoy your work when you do it well. And I think it's the same with teaching. Is you get this high in knowing that someone or people are getting something out of you, or enjoying the things that you do. Hopefully. Well, I forgot to say that I'm really, really passionate about architecture. That's one reason why in usually the first days of class, I always ask my students, what made you decide to take up architecture? Because for me, architecture cannot be taken by someone who's really not passionate. I mean, architecture in itself is already very hard as a course, also expensive as a course. And at the same time, it will not give you dividends in return, financial dividends in return, equating to the effort that you put out. If you really want to be rich or financially successful, architecture may not be the optimum course for that. So it's you really have to be passionate about architecture. And that's one reason why I really want to try to make them realize early on, is it really for you? The pressure here is the pressure from the parents, or society. Like, I recommend students now, especially now in the pandemic, that it's okay to take a break, to take an academic break, being for your mental health, and trying to see where you are, than pushing for or talagang pushing for it, and then only realize later on that, oops, hindi yata. I hope the students also understand the other side of the coin, the admin that it's also the pressure for the admin to deliver the curriculum at a shorter period of time without putting undue pressure on the students. So yeah, it's a balancing act, really. Don't force yourself to be passionate about architecture. Know what you really, really want to be, especially when architecture is not anymore about being a design architect. There's so many strands of architecture that one can be. One can go into purely academic research. Being a professor is not a lesser architect than being a design architect. A design architect is not the epitome of what it is to be an architect. So don't be pressured to only be a design architect. Know yourself, know your strengths. Your students are not your enemies, nor are they your competition. That's the thing is, last words is that whenever there are presentations and stuff, it's okay to share ideas. Don't say, ay, kopya yan. It's okay. Even though kinopya yan, you should be proud that your idea is able to help other people, and they will get your idea and make it their own, which is fine. So just let's all be passionate and be
online or face-to-face setup.
So you're face-to-face.
Pineapple on pizza or no pineapple?
No pineapple.
Heartbreaker or heartbroken?
Heartbreak.
Pass a plate late or pass an incomplete plate but on time?
Incomplete.
Morning or night person?
Morning.
Digital or manual?
Digital.
Lifesaver or life changer?
Life changer.
Google Meet or Zoom?
Zoom.
Tahol ng aso or tilaok ng manok?
Aso.
Describe your students in one word.
Funny.
Describe yourself in one word.
Ambitious. Where did that come from?
Describe your architectural style in one word.
Crazy.
Sir, lights on or lights off?
Lights on.
Okay, that's it.
UAPSA-UST, 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 UAPSA-UST. Comment really is this should be how I'd like my students and I to be open to share ideas, not be pressured to put up a design that they think that I would like. It's all about you. So this is where both of us can learn. A student space or an academic space should be.
Okay, start at 2, do the 2. And then do it like a half heart. It's the pointer that goes like this. Other way.
Pointer that goes, oh, there you go. See, that's why I'm not a good dancer.
And then do like this. It's a
Like
2.
that.
Can you see it's a 2?
There, yeah. But I'm trying to hide my camera.
Yeah, your thumb. Why is your thumb?
Yeah. Now you see what the dance instructor has to deal with me. In night's rest and always keep healthy.